The security guard's hand closed around the orphan girl's wrist so hard, her sleeve bunched up like paper, and the sound of her worn-out sneakers skidding on the bank's polished floor made half the lobby turn at once. "Stop resisting," the guard snapped, even though she wasn't resisting. She was just trying not to drop the dented cookie tin she held with both hands. Coins rattled inside it, a small thunder that made people laugh louder. A man in a pressed suit leaned toward his friend and smirked. "She's trying to buy the bank." The orphan girl's cheeks burned, but she lifted her chin anyway, blinking at chandeliers that looked like frozen rain. Her name was Lena Hart, and her coat still smelled faintly of bleach from the shelter laundry room. She had come in because the note in her mother's locket had told her to, because she had promised herself she would never steal even if she was starving, because this was supposed to be the one clean, honest step in a life that had never been fair. "Sir, please," she said, voice shaking, "I just need to speak to someone about an account." The teller behind the counter didn't even glance up at Lena's face. She glanced at the tin and snorted. "We don't accept, mate, whatever that is." The guard tugged again, pulling Lena toward the revolving doors. Would they really throw her out like trash in front of everyone? And why did it feel like the air itself was pushing her back, like this place was made to keep people like her outside? Lena's fingers tightened until her knuckles went white. The tin lid was taped shut, and under it were not just coins but a worn envelope with her mother's handwriting on the front, shaky letters that spelled, in English she had taught herself to read from library books, Lena Hart, Rowan. That last name had always felt like a story she wasn't allowed to open. "Fraud," someone muttered. "Beggar," another whispered. The guard reached for the envelope as if it offended him, and Lena jerked it close to her chest. "Don't," she breathed. "That's all I have left." The laughter rose again, a soft, cruel wave. Then from behind a glass wall labeled manager, a man in a charcoal suit looked up from his desk at the commotion. His eyes moved across the lobby, bored at first, then irritated, then suddenly strangely fixed. He stepped out, adjusting his tie like he'd done it 1,000 times, and his shoes made no sound on the marble. "What is going on?" he asked, calm but sharp. The guard didn't loosen his grip. "Sir, she's causing a disturbance." Came in with a tin of coins, demanding, "Let me see," the manager said, and held out his hand. Lena's heart thudded so hard she thought it would split her ribs. If she gave him the envelope, would he tear it up? Would he call the police? She hesitated just long enough for the guard to hiss, "Hand it over." Lena placed the envelope in the manager's palm, and his fingers brushed the inked letters. His face changed in a single breath, as if he had inhaled smoke. He read the name again, slower this time. "Lena Hart. Rowan," he whispered, and the sound of that whisper cut through the laughter like a snapped string. The tellers froze. The guard's grip slackened without him realizing it. The manager's eyes lifted to Lena's face, searching her features as if he expected to find a familiar shape in her cheekbones. "Where did you get this?" he asked, and it wasn't the question of a man amused by a poor girl's mistake. It was the question of a man who had just seen a ghost. Lena swallowed. "It's mine," she said. "It's my name." Someone scoffed behind her. "Sure it is." The manager didn't look away from Lena. "Release her," he told the guard, and when the guard hesitated, he repeated it with steel in his voice. The guard let go. Lena's wrist throbbed, but she didn't rub it. She didn't want to look weak. The manager nodded toward his office. "Come with me now." The lobby erupted in murmurs. Why would a bank manager pull an orphan girl into a private office over a dirty envelope? And what did that last name mean in a place built on money and secrets? Lena followed him, coins rattling in the tin with every step. And as the glass door closed behind them, she didn't know that the name on that envelope had been buried for 17 years, until today, when it walked back into the bank on shaking legs and dared to ask to be seen. Lena sat on the edge of a leather chair that felt too soft, like she might sink into it and disappear, while the manager, Mr. Alden, his nameplate said, locked his office door with a click that sounded final. He didn't offer her water. Not yet. He stared at the envelope as if it could explode. "You're from the Harbour Street shelter," he said suddenly, like he had already looked her up in his mind. Lena's stomach tightened. "How do you know that?" she asked, and hated how small her voice sounded in this room that smelled like coffee and expensive cologne. Mr. Alden's jaw worked, as if he was chewing on something bitter. "I handle certain donations," he said. "I've seen the paperwork." Lena's fingers found the seam of her coat pocket, where the locket rested like a stone. At the shelter, mornings began with the buzz of fluorescent lights and the sour smell of old cereal. Kids fought over the last clean towel. The boiler groaned like a tired animal. Lena worked after school at a diner, wiping tables sticky with syrup, listening to customers complain about cold fries while she calculated how many shifts it would take to buy antibiotics for Tommy, the 8-year-old who wheezed in his sleep on the bunk below hers. Tommy called Lena his almost sister because he didn't have a real one, and neither did she. She protected him the way she protected the locket, the way she protected the last scrap of her mother's memory. Most nights, she lay awake and asked herself questions she couldn't answer. Why did her mother leave her with strangers and a locket instead of a family? And why did the only clue she had point to a bank that looked like a palace? Mr. Alden finally looked up. "Tell me about that locket," he said quietly. Lena hesitated, then pulled it out. The chain was cheap, the metal dull, but inside was a tiny folded note and an old safety deposit key taped behind the photo. The photo showed a woman with tired eyes and a brave smile holding a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Lena's throat tightened. "My mom gave it to me," she said. Not when she was alive. The woman at the shelter, Ms. Weller, said my mother left it with me when she dropped me off. She said my mom cried so hard she couldn't speak." Lena's chest squeezed with the old hurt. She had always told herself she didn't care, that she was strong, that she didn't need anyone. But the truth was, she had built her whole life around not breaking. And sometimes not breaking felt like a job that never ended. Mr. Alden unfolded the note with careful fingers. The paper was thin, creased so many times it looked tired too. He read it once, then again, and his face softened in a way that didn't match the sharp bankman expression. It says, "If you are reading this, I am gone. Trust Harrington Bank. Ask for the Rowan box. Tell them your full name. Do not let them shame you. Love, Elise." He said the last name like it belonged in this room. Elise. Lena's heart stumbled. "Elise," she repeated. "That was my mother." Mr. Alden didn't answer right away, and that silence was heavier than any insult in the lobby. "Lena," he said finally, "why are you here today? What changed?" Lena looked down at her hands, the skin cracked from dish soap. "Tommy needs a doctor," she said. "The shelter says they might close after New Year because of funding problems. They keep saying there's nothing they can do." Her voice cracked on the last words, and she hated that it did. "I had coins," she added, almost ashamed. "I saved for months, but it's not enough." The note, it felt like my mom was telling me there was something more, something she left so we wouldn't. She couldn't finish. Would it have been so wrong to steal if it meant Tommy could breathe? That was the moral line she had stared at in the dark for years, and she had always stepped back from it, even when hunger made her dizzy. Mr. Alden's eyes flicked to the tin. "You brought that because you thought they would only see you as a beggar," he said, not accusing, just naming it. Lena swallowed hard. "I brought it because it's all I have," she whispered. Mr. Alden leaned back, and for the first time he looked afraid. "Someone in that lobby was watching you," he said. "Did you notice?" Lena's mind flashed to the moment she entered, the perfume cloud, the whispering laugh, the way a woman in a pale coat had looked her up and down, like she was a stain. "A woman," Lena said slowly. "Blonde hair, pearls." Mr. Alden's mouth tightened. "Marjorie Klein," he said, "chair of our board, biggest donor to your shelter." Lena's stomach dropped. The person who helped keep her shelter open was the same person who had laughed at her in the bank. Why would a powerful woman care about an orphan girl's name? And what did Mr. Alden mean when he said Rowan box, like it was a locked door in his mind? Mr. Alden slid the envelope back to Lena like it was suddenly precious. "You're going to leave here quietly," he said. "Go back to the shelter. Act normal. Can you do that?" Lena's pulse quickened. "Why?" she demanded. "You said you'd help." Mr. Alden's eyes went to the office door as if he expected it to open. "Because if Marjorie Klein thinks you're connected to that name, she won't let you walk away safely with answers," he said. And before Lena could ask what safely meant in a bank story, his phone buzzed, and his face went pale at the caller ID. He didn't pick up. He looked at Lena and said, "If you come back tomorrow, I can show you something. But tonight, you need to be invisible." Lena stood up, coins rattling like nerves. She didn't know how an orphan girl could be invisible in a world that already treated her like she wasn't human, but she nodded anyway. As she left through the side door, Mr. Alden opened for her. She felt eyes on her back, and when she glanced across the lobby one last time, she saw Marjorie Klein near the entrance, smiling into her phone as if sharing a joke, until her gaze landed on Lena's locket and the smile disappeared like a light switching off. The next day, Lena tried to be invisible, but invisibility isn't quiet when you're hungry and scared. She walked to the bank with her hood up, the winter air biting her ears, and every car that slowed near the curb made her shoulders tense. At the shelter that morning, Ms. Weller had posted a notice on the bulletin board in thick black marker. "Donation review, please be patient." The words looked polite, but the tone in the director's voice wasn't. "We're doing what we can," the director had snapped when Lena asked about Tommy's inhaler refill. "And no, we don't have extra money because someone like you thinks she deserves special treatment." Lena had swallowed her anger because yelling wouldn't help Tommy breathe. She had given Tommy her last orange from breakfast anyway, peeling it carefully so his small fingers wouldn't get sticky. "You're like sunshine," Tommy had said, mouth full, and Lena had smiled even as her stomach ached. Was kindness just another word for losing in a world that rewarded the loud and greedy? And if her mother had left something for her, why had the shelter been allowed to struggle at all? At the bank, Mr. Alden met Lena at a service entrance and led her through a hallway that smelled of printer ink and mop water, away from the bright lobby where people laughed. "You shouldn't have to do this through back doors," he said once, almost to himself. Lena clutched the cookie tin like a shield. "I'm used to back doors," she replied. Mr. Alden stopped in front of a steel door with a keypad. "This is the safe deposit vault," he said, and his voice held the weight of rules. "There's a box registered to Elise Rowan." Lena's heart jumped. "Rowan," she repeated. Like the name on the envelope." Mr. Alden nodded. "It hasn't been opened in years," he said, "because it requires 2 keys. One from the bank, one from the registered holder or named successor." He glanced at her locket key. "That might be yours." Lena's hands trembled. If the box held money, could she finally help Tommy? Could she stop feeling like every day was a math problem she always failed? Mr. Alden motioned for her to place the key on a tray. "Before we try, there are procedures," he said. "Proof of identity, paperwork, and—" He hesitated, and Lena's stomach tightened. "And what?" she asked. Mr. Alden exhaled. "And Marjorie Klein has access to certain alerts," he admitted. "If I open this process officially, she'll know." Lena stared at him. "Why does she get to know anything about my mother?" she demanded. Mr. Alden's eyes hardened. "Because she has built herself into every corner of this city," he said. "She funds shelters, she chairs boards, she smiles for cameras, and she owns favors like other people own shoes." He looked at Lena with a sudden gentleness. "I'm trying to keep you from being crushed." Lena's throat tightened, not with fear this time, but with anger. "I'm already crushed," she said. "I just keep standing up." Mr. Alden's mouth twitched, like he almost smiled, but then his expression fell again. "There is one thing I can do," he said. "I can check the registration record without triggering a full alert, but it means you have to trust me." Lena's mind flashed to the guard's hand on her wrist, to the laughter, to Marjorie's cold gaze. Trust felt like stepping onto ice. "Why would you help an orphan girl?" she asked, and it came out sharper than she meant. "What do you get out of this?" Mr. Alden didn't flinch. He reached into a locked drawer and pulled out a thin folder that looked older than him. The edges were worn smooth. "I get to do one right thing," he said, "because I promised someone I would." He opened the folder and slid a single page toward her. At the top, in elegant letterhead, was the name of the bank's founder, Harrington Bank and Trust. Below it, in careful ink, was a signature, E. Rowan. "Elise Rowan," Mr. Alden said. "Your mother." Lena's vision blurred. "You knew her," she whispered. "Did you?" Mr. Alden shook his head slowly. "I knew of her," he said. "She vanished from this city. People said she ran away. People said she was unstable. People said many things." He tapped the page gently. "But this letter, it tells a different story." Lena wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, furious at herself for crying in front of a man in a suit. "What does it say?" she asked. Mr. Alden's voice dropped. "It says, if my daughter comes, do not let them turn her away. Her name will be Lena. Protect her from Marjorie." Lena's blood went cold. Protect her from Marjorie. Why would her mother warn her about the very woman who donated to the shelter? And what did Marjorie have to lose if an orphan girl opened a box? Mr. Alden turned the page, showing a small stamped note at the bottom. "There's a trust connected to the box," he said. "The Rowan Trust." Lena stared. Trust. She had never trusted anyone, and had never been trusted back. "So there's money," she breathed. Mr. Alden didn't nod quickly. "There could be," he said carefully. "Or documents, or both. But there's a problem." Lena's stomach tightened. "What problem?" "Mr. Tilden held up his hand. "The trust has a condition," he said. "A witness, someone who can confirm you are who you say you are, because Elise knew she might not be here to do it." Lena's hope flickered. "A witness like Miss Weller?" she asked. Mr. Alden's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Weller answers to Marjorie," he said. "We need someone else." Lena's mind raced. She didn't have family. She didn't have a father on record. She didn't even have baby pictures. Who could prove an orphan girl belonged to a name powerful enough to make a bank manager turn pale? Mr. Alden opened his mouth to say something, but the vault hallway lights flickered as if the building itself shivered. Then his phone buzzed again, and this time he did answer because the caller wasn't a person. It was the internal security line. He listened, face tightening, then looked at Lena with urgency. "She's here," he said. "Marjorie Klein just walked into the bank and she asked to see me." Lena's breath caught. Would Marjorie recognize her from yesterday? Would she demand the locket? Would she accuse Lena of lying and have her dragged out again, this time in handcuffs? Mr. Alden closed the folder and placed it back in the drawer as if hiding a beating heart. "Listen to me," he said. "You have to leave right now. I'll find the witness name. I'll contact them. And you—" His eyes flicked to Lena's locket. "Keep that safe. It's more valuable than you know." Lena nodded, but fear had already crawled up her spine. As Mr. Alden guided her out through the same service hall, Lena heard the distant echo of heels clicking on marble, steady and sure, like someone who never doubted the world belonged to her. By the time Lena slipped back into the cold air, her hands were numb but her mind was on fire. The name Rowan didn't just feel like a story now, it felt like a door someone had tried to nail shut. At the shelter, she found Tommy sitting on the bottom bunk, hugging a threadbare stuffed dog. His breathing sounded thin, like wind through a cracked window. "Did you get the magic money?" he asked, hopeful. Lena forced a smile. "Not yet," she said, and kissed his forehead, tasting salty sweat. The shelter director stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Lena," she called, "office now." Lena's stomach sank as she followed. The director's office smelled like cheap air freshener fighting mold. On the desk sat a glossy photo of Marjorie Klein shaking hands with politicians. The director tapped the photo as if it was a holy icon. "Mrs. Klein called," she said. "She said you caused trouble at Harrington Bank." Lena's heart lurched. How did Marjorie know Lena's name already? And why would she bother to call a shelter director about an orphan girl? "I didn't cause trouble," Lena said, keeping her voice steady. "I just went to ask about something my mother left." The director scoffed. "Your mother," she repeated with sharp pity. "You think you're special because you found a piece of jewelry. Mrs. Klein funds this shelter. She keeps the lights on. If she says you embarrassed her, you embarrassed all of us." Lena's hands curled into fists. "She laughed at me," Lena said, unable to stop the words. "She watched them grab me." The director's eyes narrowed. "You're not going to bite the hand that feeds you," she warned. Lena's throat tightened. "What if the hand is feeding us crumbs on purpose?" she asked, and the director's face hardened like stone. "You are on thin ice," the director said. "One more incident and you're out." Lena walked out of the office with her ears ringing. She wanted to scream, but she swallowed it because Tommy was watching, and Tommy didn't need another reason to be scared. That night, as the shelter went quiet, Lena sat on her bunk and unfolded her mother's note again, tracing the words with her finger until the paper warmed. "Do not let them shame you." Why had Elise written that? Had Elise been shamed in that same bank lobby once? And if Mr. Alden was searching for a witness, who could it be? Someone from Elise's past, or someone from the bank, or someone Lena had never met? Lena tucked the locket under her shirt and tried to sleep, but every sound in the hallway made her eyes snap open. Around midnight she heard a soft creak, like a floorboard trying not to be noticed. She held her breath. Someone moved in the dark, close to her bed. Lena's hand slid under her pillow, finding the small pocket knife she used at the diner to open boxes. She didn't want to use it. She never wanted to hurt anyone, but fear made her brave in a way hunger never could. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer. A shadow leaned over her, and Lena felt fingers tug at the chain around her neck. Instinct exploded. She grabbed the chain with one hand and shoved the shadow back with the other. The chain snapped, cold metal biting her skin. The shadow stumbled, then bolted toward the door. Lena lunged, but her sock caught on the blanket and she fell hard on the floor. She heard the door click shut, quick and quiet. Lena scrambled up and turned on the bedside lamp. Her bunk bed looked the same, except it didn't feel the same. Her heart hammered as she searched her sheets, her pillow, her shirt collar. The locket was gone. The key was gone. The note was gone. Lena's breath came in short bursts. Had someone really snuck into a shelter just to steal from an orphan girl? And if they wanted the locket, did that mean Mr. Alden was right? Did Marjorie Klein truly fear what was inside that box? Lena ran to Ms. Weller's room, but Ms. Weller was out sick. The night staff barely looked up from their phones. "Kids steal," one of them said lazily, as if Lena had lost a hair tie instead of her mother's last proof. Lena stood in the hallway shaking and realized something that made her knees weak. Someone had been watching her closely enough to know exactly what to take. She went back to her bunk, staring at the bare skin of her neck where the chain had been, and for the first time she wanted to cry loud to make the world hear her. Instead, she did what she always did. She held it in, because that's what orphan girls learn. But as she sat there, a thought pierced through the panic like a needle. If the locket was gone, whoever took it believed it mattered. And if it mattered, then the secret her mother left was real enough to steal for. Lena wiped her face, stood up, and made a decision that scared her more than the thief did. She would not go back to being invisible. She would find Mr. Alden before Marjorie could erase her name completely, even if the whole city laughed again. She grabbed her coat, slipped out into the night and walked toward the bank's dark silhouette, unaware that a car with its headlights off rolled slowly behind her. Morning came like a bruise, grey and heavy, and Lena reached the bank before the doors opened, her breath a white cloud and her fingers numb around the cookie tin. Mr. Alden met her outside, eyes widening when he saw her bare neck. "Where's the locket?" he asked immediately. Lena's voice trembled despite her effort. "Someone stole it," she said. "Last night. They took everything." Mr. Alden's face tightened with something like guilt. "I was afraid of that," he murmured. Lena's throat burned. "So you said keep it safe," she snapped. "How am I supposed to keep anything safe in a place where people can walk in and take what they want?" Mr. Alden didn't argue. He opened the bank door just wide enough for her to slip inside. The lobby was quiet now, empty except for the faint hum of lights and the smell of floor polish. "I found the witness name," he said, and Lena's heart jumped. "Who?" she demanded. Mr. Alden hesitated, then said, "A notary named Rafael Alvarez, retired. He signed Elise Rowan's documents the day she left town." Lena stared. "Where is he?" she asked. Mr. Alden's eyes flicked away. "An assisted living home across the river," he said. "But Lena, Marjorie Klein knows I looked into this. She called me into a meeting yesterday." Lena's stomach dropped. "What did she say?" Mr. Alden's jaw tightened. "She smiled," he said, and his voice held disgust. "She told me I looked tired. She asked if I was handling stress well. Then she reminded me the board reviews my position next month." He exhaled. "She didn't accuse me. She didn't have to. She just let me know she was watching." Lena's pulse pounded. "So what now?" she asked. Mr. Alden opened his drawer and slid something across the desk, a photocopy of Elise's letter. "Now you go see Mr. Alvarez," he said. "You tell him your name and show him this copy. It's not as strong as the original key, but it's something." Lena's chest tightened. "And the box?" she asked. Mr. Alden's eyes were sad. "Without the key we can't open it," he admitted. But if Alvarez signs an affidavit confirming you are Elise Rowan's daughter, that may be enough to trigger a legal process to access the trust through court. Court. The word tasted like cold metal. Lena pictured suits and judges and people who would call her a liar because she looked poor. Could she stand in a courtroom without shaking apart? And if she did, would it even save Tommy in time? Mr. Alden leaned forward. "There's something you should know," he said quietly. Lena's stomach tightened. "Tell me," she insisted. Mr. Alden's voice dropped. "Elise Rowan was the only child of Samuel Rowan," he said, "the man who built this bank with Harrington. The Rowan family name is on half the plaques in this city." Lena's mind spun. "That's not possible," she whispered. "If my mother was... that... why was I in a shelter?" Mr. Alden's eyes held pain. "Because Elise was pushed out," he said. "And because someone made sure she stayed out." Lena's blood went cold. "Marjorie," she whispered. Mr. Alden nodded once. "Marjorie married into wealth," he said. "She wasn't born Rowan, but she became the keeper of Rowan's secrets after Samuel died. She positioned herself as the savior of this city." He paused. "And Elise threatened that." Lena's throat tightened. "How?" she asked. Mr. Alden's answer was careful. "Elise discovered irregularities," he said. "Money moved in ways it shouldn't. Donations that didn't reach their destinations. Accounts that vanished. She tried to expose it, then she disappeared." Lena's hands shook. "And nobody helped her," she demanded, heat rising. Mr. Alden looked down. "People chose comfort," he admitted. "People chose fear." He looked up again. "I'm choosing something else now." Lena wanted to believe him, but trust still felt like ice. "Why did my mother write, 'Protect her from Marjorie'?" Lena asked, and her voice cracked. Mr. Alden swallowed. "Because Marjorie didn't just want Elise gone," he said. "She wanted the Rowan line ended. A living heir is a problem if you've built your power on being the only one who speaks for the dead." Lena's breath caught. So her existence wasn't just an accident of poverty, it was a threat to someone's empire. Mr. Alden stood. "Go to Alvarez today," he said. "Don't tell anyone, not the shelter, not your diner." Lena's face hardened. "My diner?" she echoed. Mr. Alden nodded. "Marjorie's people are everywhere," he said. Lena felt a wave of dizziness. How could an orphan girl fight a woman whose reach was in every hallway? Mr. Alden opened the office door, and Lena stepped into the lobby again, empty now, but still echoing with yesterday's laughter in her memory. As she crossed to the exit, she saw something that made her stomach drop. Through the glass doors, Marjorie Klein stood outside beside a sleek black car, pearls bright against her coat, watching the bank like she owned it. She lifted her hand and gave Lena a small, polite wave, the way you wave at someone you have already decided will lose. Lena's fingers tightened around the cookie tin until the metal dug into her palms. And as she walked past Marjorie, the woman leaned in and murmured with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "Poor girls should be careful what names they borrow." Lena kept walking, but the words followed her like a shadow, and she realized the midpoint truth was worse than she had feared. The power in her name could save her, or it could paint a target on her back that an orphan girl had never survived before. The assisted living home smelled like soup and disinfectant, and the hallway carpet was patterned with faded flowers that looked tired of being stepped on. Lena's shoes squeaked as she approached the receptionist, who barely glanced up. "I'm here to see Rafael Alvarez," Lena said, holding the photocopy with both hands like it was fragile. The receptionist frowned. "Family only," she said. Lena's throat tightened. I'm not family," she admitted, and the words always felt like a door slamming. "But he witnessed something for my mother. It's important." The receptionist looked Lena over, taking in her thrift store coat, her chapped lips, the cookie tin. "He's resting," she said flatly. Lena's chest tightened with desperation. "Please," Lena said. It could help a kid breathe." The receptionist hesitated, then sighed as if granting a favor she didn't want to. "5 minutes," she said. Lena walked down the hallway, heart pounding, and found Mr. Alvarez's room half open. A small man sat in a chair by the window, thin hands folded, a cardigan draped over his shoulders. He looked like someone who had lived a long time holding other people's secrets. "Mr. Alvarez," Lena asked softly. His eyes turned to her, cloudy but sharp at the center. "Who are you?" he asked. Lena swallowed. "My name is Lena Hart," she said, then forced the next word out like a stone. "Rowan." Mr. Alvarez's hands twitched, and for a moment his face went blank as if a memory slammed into him. "No," he whispered. "That name—" Lena stepped closer and held out the photocopy. "You knew Elise Rowan," she said. "She was my mother." Mr. Alvarez stared at the paper, then at Lena's face, and something in him shifted. Fear, recognition, grief. "They told me she died," he murmured. Lena's throat tightened. "She did," Lena said. "But before she did, she left me a key and a note. Someone stole them. Mr. Alden said you witnessed papers for her. He said you could confirm who I am." Mr. Alvarez's mouth trembled. "They found her?" he whispered. And Lena realized he wasn't asking about Elise's body. He was asking about Elise's story. "They never stopped looking," he said, voice shaking. Lena leaned forward. "Who?" she asked, and her heart pounded with the need to know. Mr. Alvarez closed his eyes. "Marjorie," he said, like the name tasted bitter. "Marjorie Klein." Lena's hands clenched. "Why?" she demanded. "Why would she care?" Mr. Alvarez opened his eyes again, and they were wet. "Because Elise was going to take everything from her," he said. "Not money, truth." Lena's breath caught. "What truth?" she asked. Mr. Alvarez's hands shook as he reached into a drawer and pulled out a small worn notebook. "I kept copies," he whispered. "I wasn't supposed to, but Elise, she begged me. She said, if I vanish, someone will call me crazy. Keep something that proves I was real." Lena's chest tightened with a strange pain, like meeting her mother's courage for the first time. Mr. Alvarez flipped through pages filled with tight handwriting and stamped seals. "Elise came to me with a trust document," he said. "She said her father, Samuel Rowan, had set up a private trust for her child because he feared the board, feared Marjorie, feared what they were doing with the bank's charitable funds." Lena's mind spun. "Charitable funds?" she echoed. Mr. Alvarez nodded slowly. "Donations meant for shelters," he said, "for clinics, for scholarships." Lena's stomach dropped as images flashed. Tommy's empty medicine bottle, the shelter's broken boiler, the director's constant, "We have no funds." "Are you saying—" Lena whispered. Mr. Alvarez's voice broke. "I'm saying Elise believed Marjorie was siphoning money meant for the vulnerable," he said. "And Elise had proof. Elise wanted to expose it and protect her child at the same time." Lena's throat burned. The world had always felt unfair, but now it felt designed. "So my mother didn't abandon me," Lena said, trembling. She couldn't finish. Mr. Alvarez looked at her with sorrow. "Elise told me she was leaving to keep you alive," he said. "She said, if they know my child exists, they will use her." Lena's breath shook. "Then why did I end up at a shelter?" she demanded, anger and grief colliding. Mr. Alvarez's voice dropped. "Because Elise had no safe allies left," he said, "and because she believed anonymity was protection." Lena's eyes stung. Protection. An orphan life was protection. She had spent years thinking she was unwanted, when maybe she had been hidden. Lena wiped her face. "Will you sign something?" she asked. "Will you testify?" Mr. Alvarez's hands tightened around the notebook. "I'm old," he whispered. "I live in a place with thin walls. They can scare me." Lena's chest tightened with panic. If he refused, her chance was gone. "Please," she said, voice raw. "I'm not asking for luxury. I'm asking for air for a kid and a chance to stop being treated like dirt." Mr. Alvarez looked at her, and for a moment the fear in him battled something else. Shame, maybe, for choosing silence before. He opened his mouth to speak, but the door behind Lena creaked wider. Lena turned. A man in a tailored coat stood there holding a folder, smiling like he belonged. "Mr. Alvarez," the man said warmly, "I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Klein to check on your comfort and your needs." Lena's blood went cold. How had Marjorie found them so fast? The man's eyes flicked to Lena and then back to Mr. Alvarez with a polished calm. "We wouldn't want anyone upsetting you with confusing stories," he added gently. "Mr. Alvarez's hands began to shake, and Lena realized with horror that the battle for truth had just stepped into the room wearing a smile. Lena stood between the suited man and Mr. Alvarez, like her body could be a wall even though she felt small and shaky inside. "He's not confused," Lena said, forcing steadiness into her voice. The man's smile widened. "Of course," he said, as if indulging a child. "And you are?" "Lena," she replied. "Lena Rowan." Saying it out loud felt like lighting a match in a dark room. The man's smile tightened. "That's quite a claim," he said, and his eyes were cold now. "Mrs. Klein takes fraud seriously." Mr. Alvarez flinched at the word. Lena saw it, how easily fear could fold an old man. She also saw something else. The man's folder had the bank's logo embossed on it, not just Marjorie's. This wasn't a private visit. It was an institutional warning. "Why are you really here?" Lena asked. "To make sure he stays quiet." The man chuckled softly. "To make sure he isn't exploited," he said, turning the words inside out. He stepped closer and lowered his voice as if offering kindness. "Look, Lena," he said, using her first name like he owned it. "Or whatever your name is, you can walk away with a small check today, enough to buy yourself a fresh start. But if you keep pushing, you'll lose your place at that shelter, you'll lose your job, you'll lose whatever sympathy you think you have." Lena's stomach clenched. How did he know about her job already? "Is that a threat?" she asked, and her voice trembled despite her effort. The man's eyes didn't blink. "It's advice," he said. "This city doesn't reward troublemakers." Mr. Alvarez squeezed his notebook, knuckles white. Lena's mind raced, and something in her clicked into place. She couldn't outpower these people, but she could outtruth them. She slid her hand into her coat pocket, fingers finding the cheap recorder she used at the diner to take inventory notes. She had grabbed it without thinking when she ran out this morning, because she didn't trust her memory when fear hit. Now she pressed the button, feeling the tiny vibration. Would it actually help, or would it just make Marjorie angrier? And if it made her angrier, could Lena survive that? Lena lifted her chin. "Mr. Alvarez," she said, ignoring the man, "did you witness Elise Rowan sign documents for a trust for her daughter?" The suited man's smile vanished. "This is inappropriate," he snapped. "You're harassing—" "Answer her," Mr. Alvarez said suddenly, voice thin but clear. The man froze. Mr. Alvarez looked at Lena, and his eyes held apology and resolve at once. "Yes," he said. "I did." Lena's breath caught. The man stepped forward, anger flashing. "Mr. Alvarez, you don't understand the consequences." "I understand silence," Mr. Alvarez said, and his voice grew steadier. "I've lived with it." Lena's eyes stung. One question answered. "Mr. Alvarez would not be bought today." But a new question rose sharp. How far would Marjorie go now that an old witness had spoken aloud? Mr. Alvarez reached for a pen with shaking fingers. "Bring me the affidavit," he said to Lena. Lena didn't have a lawyer. She didn't have fancy forms, but Mr. Alden had given her a simple statement template, handwritten, like a lifeline. Lena pulled it from her coat and placed it on the table. Mr. Alvarez read it slowly, then signed. "Rafael Alvarez," he wrote, then stamped it with a small seal he kept in his drawer like a relic. The suited man's jaw tightened. "This won't stand," he said coldly. "You're unwell. We'll contest it." Lena's voice was quiet, but fierce. "Contest all you want," she said. "It's real." The man scoffed and turned sharply toward the door. "Mrs. Klein will hear about this," he said. Mr. Alvarez's shoulders sagged after the man left, as if the courage cost him. Lena leaned down. "Thank you," she whispered. Mr. Alvarez swallowed hard. "I should have spoken years ago," he said. "Elise deserved better." Lena's chest tightened. "So do the kids at my shelter," she said, and the words came out like a vow. She tucked the affidavit inside her coat, pressed the recorder deeper into her pocket, and hurried down the hallway before anyone could stop her. Outside, the sky was brighter, but her life was darker. When she reached the shelter, 2 police officers were standing by the front desk, and the director's face was rigid with satisfaction. "Lena Hart," the director announced loudly so everyone could hear, "you're being removed for theft and disruption." Lena's stomach dropped. "Theft?" she choked. One officer held up a photo printed on paper, grainy but clear enough to hurt. It showed Lena in the bank lobby yesterday holding the envelope. Under it was a bold caption, Suspected fraud attempt. Lena's hands shook. "That's not theft," she said. "That's my name." The director's voice was sweet and cruel. "Mrs. Klein said you've been harassing elderly people and trying to scam the bank," she said. "We can't risk our funding over your delusions." Tommy appeared behind the director, eyes wide with fear. Lena's heart cracked. Would they take Tommy away from her? Would he end up alone because she dared to chase her mother's secret? Lena looked at the officers and forced her voice steady. "I will leave," she said, because she wouldn't let them drag her out in front of Tommy. "But I didn't steal anything." The officer shrugged, uncomfortable. "Just do it quietly," he said. Lena grabbed her backpack, 2 shirts, a notebook, a cheap scarf, and walked toward the door as whispers followed her. At the threshold, she turned, meeting Tommy's eyes. "I'm coming back," she mouthed, and Tommy clutched his stuffed dog like it was life. Lena stepped into the cold again, officially homeless even among the homeless, and as she walked away, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Alden. "Marjorie got me suspended, but I found the other half. Meet me tonight." Lena's breath caught. The other half of what? And could an orphan girl who had just lost her bed, her shelter, and her safety still walk into the fire one more time? That night, Lena met Mr. Alden under the flickering streetlight behind the diner where she used to work. The smell of grease and onions drifted through the cold air, and through the window she could see her replacement wiping tables, someone else wearing the apron that used to be hers. She didn't go inside. She couldn't. She felt like she had been erased and replaced in a single day. Mr. Alden looked different without the bank's shine around him. His coat was wrinkled and his eyes were tired. "They barred me from my office," he said, voice tight. "Security walked me out like a criminal." Lena's throat burned with anger on his behalf, surprising her. "All because you helped an orphan girl," she said. Mr. Alden nodded once. "And because I was too slow," he admitted. "I'm sorry about your locket." Lena's hand tightened around her backpack strap. "It's gone," she said flatly. "But I have this." She pulled out the affidavit, and Mr. Alden's eyes widened with relief. "You got Alvarez to sign," he breathed. Lena nodded. "And I recorded Marjorie's man threatening me," she added quietly, and Mr. Alden's eyebrows lifted. "Good," he said. "That's good." Lena didn't feel good. She felt like a candle in wind. "You said you found the other half," she reminded him. Mr. Alden glanced around, then led her to his car, an old sedan that smelled like stale coffee and winter coats. He opened the glove compartment and pulled out a thin book wrapped in plastic. "This," he said. Lena stared. The cover was plain, but the pages inside were filled with neat columns and handwritten notes. "A ledger," Lena whispered. Mr. Alden nodded. "Samuel Rowan kept a private ledger," he said. "Not the official bank records. A separate account of what the charitable fund was supposed to do." Lena's mind raced. "How did you get it?" she asked. Mr. Alden's jaw tightened. "I remembered something," he said. "Elise's letter mentioned a blue book hidden behind the founder's portrait in the old conference room. I broke into the building after hours," he admitted, and there was shame in his voice, but also determination. "I wasn't going to let Marjorie bury this." Lena's chest tightened. "You could get arrested," she said. Mr. Alden gave a humorless laugh. "I'm already ruined," he said, "but maybe I can help you not be." Lena opened the ledger carefully, the paper smelling faintly of dust and old ink. Names and numbers stared back at her. Lines labeled Harbor Street Shelter, Children's Clinic, Scholarship Fund. Next to them were amounts that made Lena's head spin. "This is huge," she whispered. Mr. Alden nodded grimly. "And here," he said, pointing to another column, "are the actual disbursements from the official records." Lena's stomach dropped. The amounts were smaller, sometimes barely a fraction. "Where did the rest go?" Lena whispered, and the question felt like a scream trapped behind her teeth. Mr. Alden tapped another page. "There are transfers to shell organizations," he said. "Consulting fees, event expenses, all connected to companies tied to Marjorie Klein." Lena's hands shook. Suddenly, every broken heater, every missing medicine refill, every "we don't have funds" at the shelter looked like a lie with teeth. "So she's been stealing from kids," Lena said, voice cracking with fury. Mr. Alden's eyes were hard. "Yes," he said, "and Elise tried to stop it." Lena swallowed. "And that's why she vanished," she whispered. Mr. Alden didn't answer directly, but his silence was answer enough. Lena's nails dug into her palm. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We can't just walk into a boardroom." Mr. Alden's mouth tightened. "We can," he said, "because Marjorie is hosting the annual charity gala tomorrow night at the bank's event hall. Press will be there. Donors, city officials." Lena's stomach twisted. "That's her stage," she said. "She'll crush us." Mr. Alden nodded. "Or," he said, "we expose her where she feels safest." Lena's chest tightened with fear. "They already kicked me out," she said. "They already called me a thief." Mr. Alden leaned forward. "And that's why people will listen if you stand up anyway," he said softly. Lena looked away, blinking hard. Would anyone listen to an orphan girl with a backpack and chapped hands? And even if they did, could she survive the humiliation if they laughed again, only louder? Mr. Alden reached into his pocket and held out a small metallic object. Lena's breath caught. It was a key, old, stamped with a number. "The bank's key for Elise Rowan's box," he said. "I took it before they locked me out." Lena stared at it like it was fire. "With this," he continued, "and your key, we could open it." Lena's throat tightened. "But my key is gone," she said, despair rising. Mr. Alden's eyes held a glint of hope. "Not necessarily," he said, "because Elise anticipated theft. She made a duplicate." Lena's heart slammed. "Where?" she demanded. Mr. Alden inhaled. "In the place she trusted least," he said. "The shelter." Lena's stomach dropped. "How?" she asked. Mr. Alden opened the ledger again and pointed to a line item. "Harbor Street Shelter, Locker Fund, Box 17. Lena's breath caught. "She hid it in a locker," Lena whispered. Mr. Alden nodded. "A metal locker in the basement storage," he said. "Box 17. Elise paid for it under a fake donation designation." Lena's mind raced. She had cleaned that basement. She had swept around those lockers. She had never known. "But I'm banned," she said, panic rising. "If I go back, they'll call police." Mr. Alden's voice was steady. "Then we go back smart," he said. "Not loud, not begging. We retrieve what's yours, and then we choose the moment to tell the truth." Lena stared at the key, then at the ledger, then at her own trembling hands. She was an orphan girl with no bed tonight, planning a break-in with a fired bank manager. It sounded insane, but it also sounded like the first time her life wasn't just being endured. Lena swallowed hard. "Okay," she said. "We do it." Mr. Alden nodded, relief and fear mixing in his face. "Tonight," he said. Lena's heart pounded. As they drove toward the shelter's dark outline, Lena couldn't stop one question from repeating in her mind. If Elise hid a key there, what else did she hide? And would what they found save her or destroy her? The shelter basement was colder than outside, the air damp and metallic, smelling of wet concrete and old detergent. Lena's flashlight beam slid over stacked boxes labeled winter coats, broken toys, donation receipts. Her breath sounded too loud. Mr. Alden moved carefully beside her, holding the bank key and the ledger like sacred contraband. "Locker wall is this way," Lena whispered, guiding him. Because she had cleaned these corridors so many times she could walk them blind. The irony tasted bitter. She had scrubbed floors for a shelter that might have been starving on purpose. When they reached the lockers, Lena's chest tightened. Row after row of dented metal doors, each with a small number plate. She found 17 and pressed her palm to it. "Please," she whispered. Not to God, not to luck, but to her mother's memory. Mr. Alden slid a thin tool into the lock, working gently. The lock clicked open with a soft surrender. Lena's heart leapt. Inside the locker was a plain cardboard box taped shut, and on top of it was a folded piece of paper. Lena's hands shook as she opened it. The handwriting was the same as the note that had been stolen, her mother's. "If you found this," it began, "then you were brave enough to come looking even after they tried to shame you." Lena's throat tightened, tears burning. One question answered. Elise had known her daughter would be treated cruelly, and she had prepared her anyway. Another question rose instantly. What exactly had Elise left that made powerful people so afraid? Lena opened the cardboard box. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a duplicate key, and beneath it, a small velvet pouch. She opened the pouch, and found a ring, simple, gold, with the Rowan crest engraved on the inside. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet proof. "This is," Lena whispered. Mr. Alden swallowed. "A family signet," he said. "Elise's." Lena slid it onto her finger. It fit, like a sentence completing itself. In the box beneath the ring was a second item, a thin flash drive sealed in a plastic bag, and a small handwritten label that read, "For the day they can't laugh anymore." Lena's chest tightened. "She knew," Lena whispered. Mr. Alden nodded. "She fought," he said softly. Lena clutched the flash drive, feeling its hard edges through the plastic. "What's on it?" she asked. Mr. Alden shook his head. "We'll find out," he said, "but not here." A sudden sound made both of them freeze, the creak of the basement stairs. Lena's blood turned cold. Someone was coming down. Had the director heard something, or had Marjorie's people been waiting for this? Lena snapped off the flashlight. Darkness swallowed them, thick and wet. Footsteps descended slowly, deliberate. A beam of light cut across the lockers. "Hello?" A voice called softly, too soft, too calm. Lena's pulse pounded. "Mr." Alden leaned close, whispering, "Stay still." Lena's fingers tightened around the key and flash drive. The light swept closer, pausing on locker 17's open door. The footsteps stopped. "Interesting," the voice murmured, and Lena recognized it with horror. Not the shelter director, not a guard, but the suited man from Mr. Alvarez's room. "Mrs. Klein was right," he said, almost amused. "You couldn't resist." Lena's breath hitched. Mr. Alden's hand found her elbow, grounding her. The suited man's flashlight tilted, and the beam landed on Lena's hand. The ring glinted faintly. The man's tone changed instantly, sharp with alarm. "That ring," he said. "Give it to me." Lena's heart hammered. Should she run? Should she fight? She was an orphan girl in a basement, and the world above had money and lawyers and police. But the ring on her finger felt like her mother's hand holding hers, steadying her spine. Lena stepped forward into the edge of the light, shoulders squared despite the tremble in her legs. "No," she said. The suited man's smile disappeared. "Then you'll come with me," he said, and his hand moved toward his coat as if reaching for something. Maybe a phone, maybe worse. Mr. Alden stepped beside Lena, voice calm but deadly serious. "Touch her," he said, "and you'll explain yourself to the police with a ledger full of theft in my hand." The suited man laughed quietly. "Police?" he echoed. "Who do you think signs their paychecks?" Lena's stomach dropped. He wasn't bluffing. The man took a step closer, light glaring in Lena's eyes, and Lena realized something terrifying. They had come for the key, but if they got Lena too, they could erase the problem entirely by painting her as a criminal. Lena's fingers tightened around the flash drive, and without fully thinking, she shoved it into her sock, deep against her ankle, then lifted her chin. "If you want it," she said, voice shaking but loud in the small space, "you're going to have to say out loud why you're stealing from kids." The suited man's eyes flashed with anger. "You have no idea what you're playing with," he hissed. Mr. Alden grabbed Lena's hand and yanked her toward the stairs opposite the suited man, toward a maintenance exit Lena remembered from late-night trash runs. They ran, footsteps slapping wet concrete. Behind them, the suited man shouted, "Stop!" The basement door slammed open above and more footsteps thundered down. Lena's lungs burned. Would they get caught and lose everything before they even opened the box? Mr. Alden shoved the maintenance door, and it burst into the cold night air behind the shelter, where the wind hit Lena's face like a slap. They sprinted into the alley, shadows swallowing them, and Lena realized the next step wasn't just retrieving proof. It was choosing to fight in public. She clutched the key in her fist, feeling its teeth bite her skin, and she knew tomorrow night at the gala she wouldn't be invisible. She would be a challenge Marjorie Klein could no longer ignore. The gala lights made the bank look like a jewel box, glowing warm against the winter night, and Lena almost turned around at the entrance because she could hear the laughter already, soft and bright, the sound of people who never feared losing shelter beds or medicine. Mr. Alden stood beside her in a borrowed suit, his tie slightly crooked, eyes steady. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. Lena swallowed. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with how sure it sounded. "I do." She stepped forward, an orphan girl in a thrift store dress Ms. Weller had once donated and forgotten, her backpack hidden behind a coat check, the ring tucked under her sleeve. Inside, the event hall smelled of perfume and champagne and polished wood. Marjorie Klein stood near a stage, smiling for cameras, a microphone in her hand. Behind her was a banner that read, in bold letters, "Hope for every child." Lena felt her stomach twist. Hope, sold like decoration. Would anyone believe the truth if it came from a girl who had been called a thief? And if they didn't, would this be the moment she lost everything for good? Lena's eyes found the safe deposit vault hallway entrance, guarded but not sealed. Mr. Alden had arranged something quietly. One loyal staff member, a young teller named Ethan, who had looked away yesterday in shame, now watching the hall and giving Mr. Alden a subtle nod. Ethan swallowed hard when he saw Lena. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For laughing." Lena's throat tightened, but she didn't have time to hold his guilt. "Help me stop it," she whispered back. Ethan nodded and stepped aside. Mr. Alden and Lena moved quickly down the hallway, hearts pounding. The vault door loomed, heavy and indifferent. Mr. Alden entered a code with steady fingers. The steel door opened. Lena's breath caught. In the small vault room, everything sounded louder. Her heartbeat, the scrape of metal drawers, the click of keys. "Mr." Alden slid the bank key into the lock. "Your key," he whispered. Lena's hands trembled as she pulled the duplicate key from her pocket. She inserted it beside his. For a second, nothing happened, like the world holding its breath. Then the lock turned. The drawer slid open with a quiet sigh, and Mr. Alden lifted out a black box marked E. Rowan. Lena's vision blurred. "This is it," she whispered. One question answered. The box was real, not a fantasy orphan girls told themselves to survive. But what was inside? Money, proof, or a trap? Mr. Alden set the box on the table and opened it. Inside were three things: a thick sealed envelope labeled "For Lena," a small stack of documents in Elise's name, and a second flash drive. Lena's chest tightened. "Two," she whispered, remembering the one hidden in her sock. Mr. Alden's eyes widened. "Your mother built redundancy," he murmured. Lena reached for the envelope with shaking fingers. Her name on it looked like a hand reaching across years. She tore it open carefully. Inside was a letter longer than the note, and as she read the first lines, tears spilled before she could stop them. "My brave girl," it began. "If you are reading this, you made it through the shame, and I am proud of you." Lena pressed her hand to her mouth, silent sob shaking her shoulders. Mr. Alden looked away, giving her privacy in the smallest way he could. Lena forced herself to keep reading, because the letter wasn't only love, it was instructions. "In the drive," Elise wrote, "is proof of what Marjorie did. In the documents is the trust created by my father to protect you and to restore what was stolen from children." Lena's breath caught. Restore. Not just take. The trust wasn't meant to make Lena rich, it was meant to make things right. Elise's letter continued. "They will call you a liar. They will call you greedy. They will laugh. Let them. Then speak. Speak the truth where they can't bury it." Lena's hands shook. She looked at Mr. Alden. "We have to go out there," she whispered. Mr. Alden nodded. "Now," he said. They slipped the drives and documents into a folder, and Lena tucked her mother's letter inside her dress like armor. As they left the vault hallway, the sound of applause drifted toward them. Marjorie must have begun her speech. Lena's stomach twisted. What if Marjorie saw them before they reached the crowd? What if security stopped them? As they approached the event hall entrance, Ethan appeared again, eyes wide. "She's asking about you," he whispered to Mr. Alden. "She said she wants the vagrant girl removed before photos." Lena's pulse spiked. Mr. Alden's jaw tightened. "Then we don't give her time," he said. They stepped into the hall and the heat and noise hit Lena like a wave. Marjorie stood on stage, smiling, her voice smooth as honey. "Tonight," she was saying, "we celebrate compassion." Lena's hands trembled, but she walked forward anyway, moving through a sea of suits and sequins. People turned, murmuring. Someone recognized her. A laugh sparked near the back. Lena's face burned, but she kept walking. Marjorie's eyes swept the room, then landed on Lena, and for the first time, Marjorie's polished composure cracked. Her smile faltered. The microphone lowered slightly. "You," Marjorie mouthed, barely audible. Lena stopped near the front, lifted her chin and reached into her sleeve, letting the ring catch the light as she raised her hand. The crest glinted. A hush began to spread like spilled ink. Marjorie's voice sharpened. "Security," she said into the microphone, too sweet. "Please remove this." "No," Lena said, loud enough for the nearest people to hear, and then louder. "No." The word surprised even Lena with its force. Heads turned, cameras lifted. Marjorie's eyes flashed with fury. "This is my event," Marjorie hissed. Lena's voice shook but held. "And this was my mother's bank," she said, and a ripple of shock moved through the room. Mr. Alden stepped beside her, holding the folder. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady, "before you remove her, you should hear why she's here." Marjorie's face hardened. "You're fired," she spat. Mr. Alden didn't flinch. Lena's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. Would the crowd listen? Or would they laugh again and let security drag her away? She reached for her mother's letter inside her dress, feeling the paper crinkle like a heartbeat, and as two guards started forward, Lena made the choice Elise had prepared her for. She stepped toward the stage, looked straight into the cameras and said, "My name is Lena Rowan Hart, and I have proof you've been stealing hope from children." The guards froze for a split second. The room held its breath, and Marjorie's eyes narrowed with a promise of war. The hall erupted in overlapping voices, but Lena didn't back away. She felt the weight of every stare, the burn of old shame, and behind it all, Tommy's wheezing breath in her memory like a metronome. Marjorie recovered fast, lifting her microphone like a weapon. "This is outrageous," she announced, laughing lightly as if Lena were a silly interruption. "A troubled girl from the shelter has decided to make a spectacle. Please, everyone, let's not—" "Troubled," Lena cut in, and her voice cracked but carried. "Troubled is a child who can't get medicine because your donations vanish." A gasp went through a cluster of donors. The cameras tilted closer. Mr. Alden opened the folder and held up the ledger pages, his hands steady. "This is Samuel Rowan's private ledger," he said. "It shows intended charitable disbursements and the shortfalls from the official records. The missing funds trace back to shell companies connected to Marjorie Klein." Marjorie's smile tightened. "Fabrications," she snapped. "Stolen documents. He broke in. He's a criminal." Mr. Alden's eyes were hard. "Then call the police," he said calmly. "They can verify the handwriting and the accounts." Lena felt a strange calm settle in her chest, like standing in a storm after you've already been soaked. There was nothing left to fear about getting wet. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her recorder and pressed play. The suited man's voice filled the room, amplified by a nearby speaker. Ethan hurried to connect, trembling with adrenaline. "You can walk away with a small check today," the recording said. "But if you keep pushing, you'll lose your place at that shelter, you'll lose your job." A stunned silence fell like a curtain. Someone whispered, "That's blackmail." Marjorie's face went pale around the edges. "That is edited," she hissed. Lena lifted her chin. "It's not," she said, "and I have an affidavit from Rafael Alvarez, the notary who witnessed my mother's trust documents." Mr. Alden held up the stamped affidavit. A man in the crowd, an older reporter with a notepad, stepped forward. "Rafael Alvarez," he repeated. "The same Alvarez who notarized Rowan estate transfers decades ago?" Mr. Alden nodded. The reporter's eyes widened. "Then this isn't a prank," he muttered, and his pen scratched fast. Marjorie's voice sharpened. "You're all being manipulated," she said, the sweetness gone. "This girl is not a Rowan. Elise Rowan had no children." Lena's chest tightened, but she raised her ring again, letting the crest show clearly. "Then why does this fit my finger?" she asked softly. "And why did my mother write to the bank manager telling him to protect me from you?" Mr. Alden pulled out Elise's letter, careful not to wave it like a prop. He handed it to the reporter instead. "Read it," he said. The reporter scanned the lines, his face shifting as he absorbed the words. He looked up at Marjorie. "This letter names you," he said, voice loud enough for the front rows. "It says, 'Protect her from Marjorie.'" A murmur surged. Marjorie's jaw clenched. "Elise was unstable," Marjorie snapped. "She ran away because she couldn't handle responsibility." Lena's voice grew steadier, fueled by something deeper than anger. Truth. She ran because she found what you were doing, Lena said, and she knew you'd destroy her to keep your image clean. Marjorie's eyes flashed. How dare you, she spat, and for a moment the mask fell completely, revealing something sharp and cruel beneath. Lena didn't flinch. I lived in a shelter you funded, Lena said, voice trembling with pain. I watched kids get turned away from clinics because the budget didn't allow it. I believed it was just the way the world worked, but it wasn't the world. It was you. Marjorie looked out at the donors, desperate now. I built this city's compassion, she insisted. Without me, those shelters would close. Lena swallowed, then said the line that felt like stepping off a cliff. They were closing because you were starving them. The room reacted like a struck bell. To a donor near the front, an older woman with kind eyes stood up slowly. My foundation gives to Harbor Street Shelter, she said, voice shaking with fury. Are you saying my money didn't reach them? Mr. Alden held up the ledger page. Your foundation is listed here, he said. The intended amount is here. The actual received amount is here. The older woman's mouth fell open. That's theft, she whispered. Marjorie's hands trembled around the microphone. This is a witch hunt, she hissed. At the back of the hall, a police officer who had been hired for event security stepped forward, face serious. Ma'am, he said to Marjorie, if these documents are legitimate, we need to... You will do nothing without my permission, Marjorie snapped, and the officer's eyes narrowed. She had said the quiet part out loud. In that moment, the room shifted. Power didn't vanish instantly, but it cracked. Mr. Alden stepped forward. Open the drives, he said to the reporter and another donor who worked in forensic accounting. Verify the files. Ethan hurried again, plugging the flash drive into a laptop at the edge of the stage. The screen filled with scanned bank statements, emails, transfer confirmations, cold data that didn't care about charm. The forensic accountant's face tightened as he read. These are internal communications, he said quietly. And the routing numbers match legitimate accounts. A murmur surged again, louder, angrier. Marjorie's breathing quickened. This is illegal, she said, voice cracking now. You can't do this to me. Lena's chest rose and fell fast, but she held her ground. You did it to us, she said softly. For years. The police officer stepped closer to the stage. Mrs. Klein, he said, I'm going to ask you to come with me. Marjorie's eyes darted, searching for an ally, but the donors she once smiled at were staring back with disgust. Cameras flashed. The banner behind her, Hope for Every Child, looked suddenly like a cruel joke. Marjorie's gaze snapped to Lena, burning with hatred. You think you've won, she hissed under her breath as the officer took her arm. Lena's voice was quiet. No, she said. I think the kids might finally breathe. Marjorie was led off the stage, her heels clicking too fast now, no longer steady. The room buzzed with shock and anger and relief. Mr. Alden turned to Lena, eyes wet. You did it, he whispered. Lena shook her head, tears spilling. My mother did, she whispered back, pressing the letter to her chest. The reporter cleared his throat and looked at Lena with a new kind of respect. Miss Rowan Hart, he said, what do you want to happen now? Lena's mind flashed to Tommy, to the shelter kids, to the broken boiler, to every time she had been told to be grateful for scraps. She inhaled and answered the question that mattered most. I want the money returned to the children it was meant for, she said, and I want the shelter funded transparently, so no one can starve it again. The accountant nodded slowly. With these files, he said, we can force restitution. Mr. Alden held out the trust documents, and the Rowan Trust, he added, is in her name. Lena stared at the papers. A reward, finally. Real, significant. But it didn't feel like winning the lottery. It felt like being handed a responsibility her mother had carried alone. She looked down at the ring on her finger, then at the cookie tin she had carried through shame. The crowd wasn't laughing now. They were listening. One more question lingered like a heartbeat. Would the trust simply make Lena comfortable, or would it change the world that had made her an orphan girl in the first place? Lena swallowed, lifted her chin, and made her choice aloud. I won't disappear with it, she said. I'm staying. I'm building what she tried to protect. And as the room erupted, not in laughter, but in applause that felt like release, Lena realized the final secret wasn't hidden in a vault at all. It was in the courage to use what you reclaim for more than yourself. Weeks later, the bank lobby smelled the same, polish and paper and winter coats drying. But it sounded different. No laughter, no sneers, just the soft shuffle of people waiting their turn and the gentle clack of keyboards. Lena walked in wearing a plain coat that actually fit her now. Her hair brushed, her shoulders still slightly tense out of habit. She was still an orphan girl, still carrying the ache of missing parents, still waking some nights expecting the ceiling of the shelter above her. Money didn't erase that, but it changed what her days could hold. The Harbour Street shelter's boiler had been replaced, not patched. The clinic had a steady supply of inhalers. The donation board in the hallway was no longer a vague review. It was a printed monthly report anyone could read, because Lena insisted on transparency like it was oxygen. Tommy's breathing had improved so much that he could laugh without coughing, and the first time he ran across the shelter yard without stopping, Lena had covered her mouth and cried behind her scarf, pretending the wind made her eyes water. The trust had been legally confirmed after DNA testing and court verification, and Mr. Alvarez's affidavit had stood strong. Marjorie Klein lost her board position, her public image shattered, and the investigation into the missing charitable funds expanded beyond one woman, because systems don't steal alone. There were consequences, real ones, but Lena didn't dwell on revenge. She didn't have the energy. She had kids to protect and a life to build. Mr. Alden had been reinstated quietly, but he refused his old title. He became head of a new oversight committee for community funds, a job less glamorous and more honest. "I want to sleep at night," he told Lena once, and she understood. Lena approached the front desk now, and Ethan, the young teller, stood up immediately, face bright with nervous respect. "Ms. Rowan Hart," he said, then corrected himself gently. "Lena." Lena smiled faintly. "Hi," she said. "I'm here to open a new safe deposit box." Ethan blinked. "A new one?" he repeated. Lena nodded. "Yes," she said, and her fingers brushed the ring under her sleeve. "I want a place for something important." He processed that, then nodded and led her toward the hallway she once entered through fear. As they walked, Lena noticed a small display near the lobby entrance that hadn't been there before. A glass case holding a dented cookie tin with taped lid, and beside it a simple plaque that read, "Respect is not a privilege." Lena stopped, stunned. Mr. Alden appeared beside her, hands in his coat pockets, looking slightly embarrassed. "I thought it belonged here," he said softly. Lena's throat tightened. "People will think it's silly," she whispered. Mr. Alden shook his head. "No," he said. "They'll think." Lena exhaled, and for a moment she could hear yesterday's laughter again. Then it faded under the weight of today's quiet. She reached out and touched the glass, not to the tin itself, but to the idea that shame could be turned into a warning sign for others. "Thank you," she murmured. In the vault room, Lena signed papers with steady hands, and when Ethan slid the small new box toward her, she opened her purse and pulled out one last object, a replacement locket. Not the original, she never got it back, but a simple silver one she had bought with her own first legal paycheck from the shelter's new program. Inside it, she had placed a photocopy of her mother's photo and a folded copy of the letter's first line, "My brave girl." She placed the locket into the box with care, along with the ring for safekeeping when she didn't want to wear it. The symbol of the beginning returned to a vault, but this time it wasn't hidden out of fear. It was stored out of choice. As she closed the box, Lena paused, feeling a quiet fullness that surprised her. She had walked into this bank as an orphan girl with a tin of coins and a name people mocked. Now she walked out as an orphan girl who had turned that name into accountability, not arrogance. Outside, the air was bright and cold, and she pulled her scarf tighter, smiling when she saw Tommy waiting on the steps with Ms. Weller, who had apologized with tears and a trembling voice that sounded like regret. Tommy ran to Lena and grabbed her hand. "Did you put the treasure away?" he asked, eyes shining. Lena squeezed his fingers. "I did," she said. Tommy grinned. "Good," he said seriously. "Treasure should be safe." Lena looked back through the bank doors at the cookie tin in its glass case, the same tin that had once made strangers laugh, now sitting like a quiet promise. She thought about how easily people judge by shoes and smell and posture, and how wrong they can be. If you've ever been laughed at for walking into a room you didn't belong in, Lena's story lingers like warmth in cold air. Because sometimes the world only changes when someone who's been pushed down stands up in the place that pushed them. As Lena walked away with Tommy's small hand in hers, she didn't feel like a miracle. She felt like a choice, repeated daily, and that felt even stronger.